sort of took some interest, and 3 weeks later, 25th of July 2007, I joined. And yeah, I'm going to tell you a little bit about that journey and about how that's worked. And Del, I really appreciate you inviting me on here, Del. And Del was very sort of modest and gracious earlier. He's built an amazing business, and he took a different route to what we're about to talk about in the early days, but I know that that sort of evolved and over time. So I just want to share with you, back in 2007, I was introduced to UW. I didn't realize that that decision would shape the course of my life for the next 17 years and beyond. And when I joined, I had that question that a lot of people think about when they join. Should I focus on getting customers or should I build a team? And like you guys, I didn't have a blueprint, but thanks to the guidance of my sponsor, which I'll talk about more in a second, I took a different approach to the way that a lot of people go, which is that I put virtually all of my energy into recruiting partners. And customers, followed along. They naturally do follow. And again, we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's fast forward to today. So as Del said, that's helped to grow, a good sized business. And it's really made a massive difference to the growth of the business. So over the next sort of 15 minutes, I'll definitely be finished before the football. Over the next 15 minutes, I'm going to walk you through how focusing on building a team of partners has been the key to our success and how it can be the same for you. So I want to talk about the sponsor bit first of all. And Del, I sent you that graph thing earlier, just the 2 lines on the page. Do you mind just sharing that on the screen for people, if possible, please? So I'll put this up here for a few seconds just to sort of explain a bit about the background with my sponsor. But he came down to see me to sign me up. And on a scrap of paper, he drew what you can see on the screen in front of you now. He drew on the left-hand side was money, along the bottom was time. And he said to me, first of all, he drew the black line. He said, if you just gather customers, which is great, if you want to do that, that's fine, your income will grow in a straight line, because the more customers you get, the more your income's going to grow. And then he drew the red line. And he said, if you build a team and you teach them to duplicate what you're doing, then that income will multiply and multiply, and it will get steeper and steeper. And he put that in front of me and he said, which line do you like the look of? And I said, the one that goes vertical. And he said, great, go and build a team then. And I took him at his word. I went on the training on the 4th of August 2007. On the way back from training, I was in the car on the M4 on the way back from Bristol. It's 10 o'clock at night because I stayed for an evening event as well. And I rang up the guy that I was doing some property stuff with at the time. And I said, look, I'm bored. I'm on the M4. Can I just show you what I'm doing? And I explained it to him really, really badly over the phone. And we can take the graph off now if you want, Dale, by the way. Explained it to him really, really badly over the phone. And on the way home, he said, yes, he said he would join. So literally, my sponsor said recruit some people. And then on the way home from training, I did what they told me on training and I recruited somebody. And I guarantee it wasn't because I was really good at recruiting. And I continue to be really bad at it. But what I did was I sort of made up in numbers what I lacked in skill. And in that first month, I spoke to as many people as I could. I remember getting some feedback from one guy who joined who said it was such a bad presentation that he met somebody else whose team we were both part of at another event, and that person showed it to him properly. And then they said, well, as Stuart's spoken to you, go back to Stuart. So I guarantee you I was really crap. But by the end of the month, I'd recruited 9 partners. And I didn't know that until somebody told me that made me the top recruiter for August 2007 in the company. So as you can imagine, my belief levels from day one have been, well, if I do what they show me and I keep it simple and I just show as many people as possible, then this works. So that is a really fortunate place to be. And I realize I'm not typical with that. That's not everybody's experience, but I want to talk to you about how I've helped other people to sort of benefit from that approach as well, and how you can sort of change your mindset with it as well. So just in terms of where that led to, before we talk about some of the more mechanics, the business grew we were in a similar environment to today. The credit crunch hit in 2008-9, didn't it? I joined in 2007. By the time we got to 2013, so just sort of a couple of years after the credit crunch, which was a massive growth phase for the company, the team had reached 10,000 customers, which was about 5.5 years in, and that's grown now. It's well over 30,000 now. But the reason for saying that is a big part of that is that recruiting first and then customers coming along the way has been the key philosophy. Recruit, teach them to duplicate, and follow a simple system that means that you can then create that duplication. And obviously, part of it is about keeping things really, really simple, because my objective has always been to, become as irrelevant as possible to the growth of my income. In terms of the independence thing, our job, I see it, is when we bring somebody on, is not to be there for all the answers forevermore. It's to help them with the early part, help them with the answers, but it's the whole, do you give a man a fish or teach a man to fish? And my philosophy has always been teach a man to fish and create that independence culture. And that, combined with leading with the recruitment side of things, has been what really caused the growth, if I had to distill it down into a couple of things. Now, in terms of how I go about recruiting, because I want to get into some of the mechanics. And by the way, in a while, I'm going to ask you for some of your experiences. So sort of be thinking as we're going through this about your experiences with recruiting. But in terms of speaking to people, oftentimes when you ask partners what they struggle with recruiting, it's they don't know what to say. They think they've got to have the magic answer. They think they've got to have loads of information. And actually, my experience is it's been more about what you ask and what you get them to tell you that is the key for me in terms of helping people to see the benefit in being a partner. So for me, I always try and focus in on what is it that they need that the business will bring. Because if I can help them to see that they've got a need and then show them that the business is a way of dealing with that need, then they're much more likely to be a partner. So this is not a place to sort of cover this sort of skill of doing that, but there's an acronym FORM, stands for family, occupation, recreation, and then message. And there's a training on the portal that you can go onto on the learning portal, which will give you more information about that. But that is really asking open questions about, their family and their sort of job and what they do for fun, and getting them to tell you, what it is in their life that, generally speaking, there's often a pain that they're trying to move away from. Sometimes it's a thing they want to move towards, but they will, if you ask open questions and you show a genuine interest in people, they will often show you the reason why they need to join. And then the message is the bit that comes later. So if they say they're worried about their bills, I can help you with that. If they say they haven't had a pay rise, I can help you with that. One thing I would signpost is go and check out the online training for FORM, FORM. Now, actually, referencing what Dell said earlier, Dell said about SAMs. I call SAMs switched on, ambitious, motivated people, but Dell is a great example of a SAM, because he was in a great, well-paid job, obviously quite driven and quite hungry. And they're the sort of people that you're looking for when you're looking for potential recruits. So, you want people that are forward-thinking, goal-driven, and people that are willing to put the work in to make their business grow. So if you use FORM, if you look for SAMs, that is the first two sort of practical meat on the bones tips for how to recruit. And then the next thing I would say is, Dale mentioned about keeping things really simple. I've got no choice really, because I don't like to overcomplicate things. I like to make life really easy. And it's funny, the last couple of people that I've recruited have both said, you made that really simple. And our job is just to do that, just to simplify things. So I always use the appointment presentation as part of the process. So Dell showed you some of the video content earlier, the one, the video that he showed you during that session just a minute ago that talked about the services and things like that. That's a tool that we have to be able to show people what we're doing. And even if you're recruiting, they still need to see you using the tools that everybody can use so that when they join, they know exactly what they need to do. Because when they join, if it doesn't match up with what you did, it causes confusion. So keep it really simple. Always do the same process. And, I've tried different things, but I find every time I deviate from trying, from doing the basics, things start to break down in terms of duplication. So try and keep as close as you can to the process that we teach on training and that your sponsors probably taught you. Now, one of the things that often gets asked is if you're focusing on recruiting partners, what happens about customers? And the answer to that is they come naturally as part of the process. If you recruit a partner, chances are, in the main, they will become a customer at the same time. It makes sense, doesn't it? Because if you're already involved in the business, you know that we always recommend use as many of the services as you can, because that way you can talk from a position of strength. So when they join as a partner, you sign them as a customer, and actually, technicality, they can have a copy of their customer account that goes underneath them too. But you get paid for signing them up as a customer. The other side of it is sometimes people say they're not ready to be a partner right now, or it's not for them. Well, they are quite easy to convert into being customers, because you can say, look, I guess you can see the benefits of being a customer though. And then that makes it quite a smooth transition. More often than not, they'll agree to look at being a customer. And one of the good things about that is if they're thinking about being a partner down the line, you actually signing them up as a customer gives them a chance to experience the services, be in contact with UW. You'll be able to use that and refer to that when you speak to them again in future. So actually, some of your no for nows will turn into customers, and you can then later recruit them into the business. So challenges, before we open up the floor, I wanted to talk about. There are some challenges that come with this, and I have to say the majority of it is what goes on up here. That's the biggest challenge with focusing on recruiting first and then picking up customers along the way. Probably the number one challenge is you get more no's. You get more no's when you're offering people the business opportunity than yeses. Depending on your particular ratios, it might be you talk to 10 people, you sign one partner maybe. So that means 9 of those people are going to say no. And you feel like you're a failure if you take those no's personally. You feel like, actually, this is not success. But actually, the reality is, if you focus on the ratios, it is actually just about, that's the process. So the way I help people to overcome that particular challenge is to talk to them about the ratios. And in order to find out what your ratios are, I always recommend people keep some really, really basic stats. That can just literally be, how many presentations am I doing this week? Keep a note of it. How many yeses, how many no's? And then if you build up that over a period of time, you will find that actually you are, maybe your ratio is 8 no's, 2 yeses. Maybe it's 9 no's, 1 yes. But then once you do that consistently, it just becomes an outcome. So if they say yes, you're not punching the air and celebrating because, it's just a yes. And if they say no, you're not quitting the business and down in the dumps because it's just a no. And it really helps to detach from the emotion, which is the hardest part of feeling like you're rejected, is to just keep some really, really simple basic stats. The second challenge is people often have a mindset that they're going to focus on customers first. And again, that comes down to the ratios usually. Normally, when you sign up customers, more people say yes than when you're trying to recruit. So it feels more comfortable, and people, they like that adrenaline rush, that dopamine hit, depending on how you're wired, of actually getting that yes. And so they feel like that's the way they want to go. again, the way that I tackle that is two ways. Firstly, show them that graph. Yeah. Do as early as possible in the journey of a partner, show them how the income grows in a straight line if you just gather customers, and how it grows with that curve exponentially if you build a team as well. And that really can be a massive eye opener and help them see how over time recruiting can lead to much better results. And then reassure them, like I just did with you guys, that recruiting does lead to customer gathering, either because you sign them or as a customer when they become a partner, or your no for nows can become customers. So those two things, showing them the graph, reassuring them about the fact that customers will come along, they do actually help to overcome that mindset. Now, Adele, I'm going to open up the floor here for this, so I might need your help with this, mate, if that's okay. So before I sort of conclude, I wanted to give a chance to actually talk to people about their experiences. So I want to hear from you guys there. I've just shared, obviously, how focusing on recruiting partners can present some challenges, but also how they can be overcome. So I wanted to ask some questions about how you found it, you guys. So my first question for you guys is, how have you found your experience when you're trying to recruit partners, and what's worked well and what's held you back? Who'd like to chip in and sort of talk about their experience?
I find that most people that I do talk to about joining their business will join, but my problem is getting them to actually do anything.
You too? Okay.
Well.
That's interesting, isn't it? So Dell has got a big team. I've got a good team as well. You know, we've got, and we've all got that experience. But what do you think that's down to? What would you say is the answer to that? What do you think I'm going to say in response to that after what I said earlier?
Probably, speaking to enough people, because I've not getting enough people that are actually willing to commit. And the past couple of weeks, I've been watching a lot of trainings, and I've been learning about, the way to structure the fast starts, which I wasn't doing before. So that was leading to people. I was just joining them up and then kind of stuck to what to do with them.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get the skills going there to make sure that I'm implementing that.
Fair enough. So I would say definitely learn the skills for getting people started. It's pretty simple, follow that process of the fast start plan. But referencing what I was talking about earlier, keep some stats. You can see the stats on your screen, but keep some really basic stats. I've recruited X amount of people. How many of them got started and how many of them didn't? And then when you get an outcome, so I've just had a meeting this afternoon with two guys who joined a week and a half ago. They've got 5 customers already. They want to sign up 10 customers a month. They're getting going quickly. That's an outcome. Now, back in the day when I was brand new, I would have been running around the room sort of, doing laps celebrating because they've made a great start. But that's just one outcome that those guys have made a good start. Equally, I recruited somebody a couple of weeks ago and they did nothing and they didn't get started. And that's another outcome. Yeah. So because the emotion still comes at that point in the process. If you recruit somebody and then they don't get started, you tend to get downhearted and you think you're a crap sponsor. And if they do, you bounce around the room and you get excited and you think you're the best sponsor since sliced bread. Actually, it's just the next stage of the process. So I would say use the stats and track it.
Cool.
Fabulous. Thanks for that, James. Heather, you've unmuted. Did you have a question or a comment?
Well, I think Del unmuted me, but so I've always focused, rightly or wrongly, on sort of both sides, getting people in to have a look at the customer side. And I just want to share something, because last year I brought in 35 customers, which was the most that I've done for so long.
Excellent.
And out of those, I recruited 27.
Okay. That's good.
Because of the way that I was recruiting it through my other business, my coaching business. So that's why I was doing it that way. But what I found and what the guy that just said then was getting people started.
Yeah.
But it is just a numbers game. So this last week, I've recruited 4 and they've all got started.
Yeah.
So for me, it was it's switching that mindset from the customer gathering, because I still do that now, but I always show the full presentation, and that's what gets people in for me.
Yeah.
So how would you recommend, or what tips would you give to switch that mindset from, because I've been in 12 years in January.
Okay.
So going from that recruitment mindset to, customer gathering, and the recruitment will come off the back of it, to the other way round.
So firstly, it's a decision. And most people decide quite early on, because they get a lot of no's. They're not getting a lot of no's, they're just getting no's because it's part of the process, that recruitment is hard and customer gathering is easy, because they get more yeses and less no's when they're customer gathering, and they get more no's and less yeses when they're recruiting. So first of all, it's a decision that you're going to do that. In terms of how you talk to yourself, I always urge people, when they're telling people that they're crap at recruiting or they're no good at recruiting, which is often a challenge for people, is tell yourself you're learning to recruit. Tell yourself that you are learning a process that allows you to do it and make mistakes, that allows you to not be confident. Most of us learn to drive. We were not brilliant drivers when we first started driving, and we got better over time. So the way you talk to yourself makes a big difference. But the key thing is the decision, deciding that you're going to focus on looking for partners, and the customers will come later. The company have got lots of great incentives, and thankfully a lot of the incentives now have a recruiting element to them. So they're sort of steering us in that direction. But sometimes, we get drawn into must qualify for that incentive because it's heavily customer focused. Make your own decision. What's most important to you? And if it is building a team, then do that action, make that decision, do that action. If you say that you want to build a team, but you aren't taking the actions necessary, then you don't really want that bit of it enough. You have to want it and make that decision, would be my advice.
Well, thank you.
Fabulous. Dale, just conscious of time. So I know we wanted to finish by 1:45. So I just wanted to, I will, by all means, people can message me afterwards. Dale, you're welcome to share my number, or people can go on the UW forum and comment on there or whatever. But I just want to say to everybody, thanks to you guys for your 2 questions there. The main takeaway here is that recruiting partners will come with some challenges, mainly mindset, but it's how you manage those challenges. Knowing your ratios, reframing your approach, staying consistent, that's what leads to the growth. So biggest thing is to remember is that both recruiting and gathering customers are simple processes. And once you understand your simple ratios, just how many no's it takes to get a yes, it's just literally about following the process and staying consistent. So I've got 2 takeaways for you in terms of actions. The first one is, think about where can you find some SAMs, switched on, ambitious, motivated people. Where do they hang out? Maybe it could be local networking events. It might be social media groups. It could even be within your existing circle of influence. So start putting yourself in places where you're likely to come into contact with people who fit that SAM profile, switched on, ambitious and motivated. And the second one, start keeping some very simple stats. Definitely keep it simple. How many presentations did you do this week? How many yeses? How many no's? And if you do that, then you'll know what to expect in terms of your efforts and what results to expect, and then you can detach from the emotion. That I finished 2 minutes early, Del. That's everything I wanted to cover today.